In this video, we're going to show you how to use BuildShip to create a powerful brand mention tracker with no code that listens for mentions of keywords that matter to you on popular social and community platforms like Hacker News, Reddit, or YouTube, and sends you a daily email report of all the mentions. But first, let's walk through a quick demo of what we'll be building. We have a BuildShip workflow that's scheduled to run every day at midnight using the everyday cron trigger. On a daily basis, this workflow will fetch any mentions of the keyword we specify, in this case OpenAI, and then save all those mentions in a Google Sheet, and then finally send us an email to notify us that our new mentions report is available for viewing. The end result is a new Hacker News mention report on OpenAI in our inbox. We have the attached Google Sheet, and we can open it up to preview it. And these are all the mentions of OpenAI for the previous day. We have the post title, the post URL, the points, the outer, the created at date, and the important piece of information that we want to capture, which is the actual mentions of OpenAI. Let's get started. For this demo, we'll focus on listening for mentions of keywords stemming from Hacker News. The great thing about Hacker News is that they have a publicly accessible API. This means that you don't even need to have a Hacker News account, and there's also no need for you to create any API keys. Back in BuildShip, we'll start by cloning the Hacker News mention tracker template. We'll go to the templates library, and here you can search for mention. For this video, we'll be focusing on show you how to get this working for Hacker News. As you can see here, we currently have two more options. You can create a mention tracker for YouTube or Reddit. But for now, we'll go with the Hacker News mention tracker. And here's our workflow. Believe it or not, there's not too much that we need to do in order to get this working. We'll start at the top, and the entry point of our workflow here is a cron trigger. In this case, we're using the everyday cron trigger because we want to get a mentions report on a daily basis. Here you can configure the scheduled time zone and then the time of the day. We want this to run at midnight. If you're looking to use a different schedule, then you can just replace this cron trigger with a different one. For example, we can delete this, then add trigger, and then you can search for cron, and then you'll find options for every hour, every month, every week. If you don't see an option here that matches your requirements, then simply select the default schedule cron, add trigger, and then here you can enter the schedule pattern to control how often you want your BuildShip workflow to be triggered. But we'll revert back to the previous trigger that we were using. Before we move on, we want to mention an important point, and that is that we only care about mentions that are within a 24-hour window. We can assume for our reporting requirements that we only care about new mentions. With that in mind, the next node in our workflow is to retrieve the previous date. You can optionally specify a different time zone here, but we're going to go with UTC. So if we test this node, we get yesterday's date, which for me was the 27th of August. This previous date will be the starting date we'll use in our Fetch Hacker News node to ensure that we're only retrieving mentions that start after the previous date. This brings us to our Hacker News node. This node will extract any mention of the query we specify from Hacker News. This will work if the keyword appears in the post title, the post body, and even in comments of the post. The first thing we need to do is specify the keyword we want to listen for. By default, the template has it set to OpenAI, but we can change this to something different. Let's enter NASA. And then as we previously covered, the start date is just using the output of our get previous date node. This node supports pagination as well if you want to retrieve a larger number of results. And hits per page is where you can specify the total number of results to return per page. As you can see here, the default is 100, but we'll leave it set to 20 for now. Before continuing further in our workflow, we can test this node to see if it works. So we'll get our previous start date, which is this. Then we can test our node. So we'll set this as the start date. And you can see that our query or keyword is already set to NASA. And let's run the node. Perfect, our node is working fine. And we're getting back a list of mentions. Now that we verified our mentions are coming back from Hacker News, we can move further down our workflow. Before we get to storing our mentions in a new Google Sheet, we have a branch node here that's checking to see if we get back any mentions at all. If we don't get back any mentions, then it doesn't make sense to do anything else, so we just want to return out of our workflow. Otherwise, we can keep moving forward. This brings us to the Create Google Sheet node, and this is just one of the many pre-built Google Workspace nodes that BuildShip provides. This node will create an empty Google Sheet for us. But before you can use this node, you'll need to authenticate. And that might just be the easiest step in this entire tutorial, because BuildShip makes the authentication process seamless and easy through a single sign-in process. And there's no need for any additional setup or managing any API keys. Notice how I'm already authenticated, but I'll log out to show you what that process looks like. I'm now logged out, so I need to authenticate again. You can just click on Authenticate here, and then select the Google account you want to use. Select Continue, scroll down to the bottom and click Allow, and it's as easy as that. We're now authenticated again. And now we can create our empty Google Sheet. I'm specifying a sheet name here. For the prefix of the name, we'll use the previous date, along with the title Hacker News Mentions Report. Once our Google Sheet is created, we can start inserting rows. And we have this Add Row node for doing just that. We can actually use this node to insert multiple rows all at once. The first thing we need to enter here is the spreadsheet URL that we created. So we're just grabbing this from the output of our Create Sheet node, and then spreadsheet URL. We can leave the default sheet name. That's not too important for us. And the important part is the data input. This is where we'll specify what we want to insert into our spreadsheet. This is, of course, all dimensions we gather from our Hacker News node. If we open up the data input here, and we can expand this to get a better view, the first line here is where we can specify the headers of our spreadsheet. Then we have some JavaScript here that's looping through each of the dimensions we get from our Hacker News node and extracting the title, URL, point, outer created at, and dimension. And this will translate to the individual rows that will be inserted into our spreadsheet. Once a spreadsheet has been populated with some data, we're now ready to send it in an email. For this, BuildShip provides a useful send email node that will allow us to send emails to our Gmail inbox. In order to use this node, you'll need to go through the same authentication process that we previously looked at. But in my case, I'm already authenticated. The first input is for the from sender email address. We have it set to automentions@rowie.io. Next, you'll need to specify the receiver email address. So I'll just leave mine here to lois@rowie.io. And then we can specify the email subject. So here, the template has it set to new Hacker News Mention Report on OpenAI, but we can change this to NASA. And then finally, we can specify the email message. So we're just setting a very basic message here, new mentions report available, and then we're sending the download URL of the Google spreadsheet. So we get this from spreadsheet URL. And that's the only node we need to use to send our mentions report straight to our Gmail inbox. And the final node in our workflow is simply returning the spreadsheet URL for us. Now for the moment of truth, let's put our workflow to the test. The great thing about BuildShip, even if you're using a scheduled cron trigger, you can still test the workflow. So we can just go to test at the top, and then we can test the scheduled job. And then finally, we get back an OK response, which means that our workflow is working without any errors. And the final result is our spreadsheet URL. Then if I go into my Gmail inbox, I'll see a new email at the top, new Hacker News Mention Report on NASA. We click into this, I'll be able to open up our spreadsheet. Awesome, this is looking good. So we have our post title, our post URL, the points, the outer, the created at date, and then finally, any mentions of the keyword we entered, which for this demo was NASA. We just went through testing our workflow manually, but because we're using a cron trigger, we can rest assured that our Hacker News Mention Tracker workflow will be executed on a daily basis, and moving forward, we can expect a report in our Gmail inbox. We'll stop here. If you found this tutorial helpful and interesting, then we'd love to hear your feedback. So don't forget to share them in the comments. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, then now will be a good time to do that because we have a lot of amazing tutorials and demos that we're releasing by the week. We'll catch you in the next one. Until then, happy build shipping.